button, and we are good to go. Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar tonight, Becoming a PMO Leader, Is It in You? And that's something that we will be exploring today. I'm going to be sharing a bit about myself, and I want to learn a bit about you as well, understand where you are, where you're coming from, and how we can get you to that level where you want to be. So, as I do for all my webinars, I want to make sure I try to get a sense of where everyone is from. So, I'm here in Toronto. It's around 8 o'clock in the evening. I know we've got folks who've registered from across the globe. I'd love for you to sort of tell me, just quickly type in the webinar chat where everyone is from. We've got Terry here from Seattle, Larry from Columbia, Maryland. That's a place where I used to spend a lot of time. Jaron from Toronto. We've got a few folks from India. Paritosh is from Hyderabad. Rick is from Massachusetts. Welcome, Rick. Sumati is from Philly, the US. Welcome, Sumati. We've got Dan from North Carolina. Hi, Dan. Damien from Gold Coast, Australia. Wow. So we've got a variety of different time zones. This is amazing. Really, really appreciate you guys joining in. It's late in the evening for some of us. It's early in the morning from some of us. We've got Rafael from Madrid and living in Jakarta. Excellent. Welcome, Rafael. I noticed you joined quite a bit early. I'm glad you hung around. Good to see you here. Excellent. Excellent. Great. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty global panel, and I'm really excited to see all of you guys here. So, I just want to go ahead and introduce myself a bit. I've been in the field for over a decade. Started off as a developer, and then got myself into management technology consulting, and that sort of was a natural transition into project and program management, and had the opportunity to manage programs up to $23 million in value. Had the chance to work with teams spread across the globe with 50 odd resources on them. It's been a fantastic experience, and then that naturally led me to become a PMO leader, and then from after setting up a few PMOs, got the chance to work one-on-one with everyone who is starting off their journey in setting up a PMO, or who are aspiring to become PMO leaders themselves. And then I've sort of got into blogging and speaking as well. I write for my own blog, and also for projectmanagement.com and a few other project management related sites. And then I speak regularly at PMI events, and then hold events like this as well. And interestingly, the way I became a PMO leader, the first instance, like I mentioned to you, I have a lot of project and program management experience, but the first experience of actually being a PMO leader, that came about, I would say, morely as a fluke. I was at a client, and I was there for a completely different project. And the idea was to just focus on that project. But interestingly, the PMO lead for that client just joined 4 days before I did. And I thought that was a great opportunity for me to contribute as well and get into the mix of helping setting up the PMO. And that was really my first stint, I would say, if you will, to really get a good understanding of what it takes to set up a PMO, and a good start as well. And that's really my story. And I'm sure all of you guys, when we start talking about you'll have your stories too. But from a lot of the people that I've spoken with and the experiences that I've heard from folks, I really consider setting up a PMO, or others becoming a PMO leader, the journey to the top role. I basically break them into two categories. The first category is your conventional category, The second one is a non-conventional category. So I would say that the fact that I got a bit of a fluke to become a PM leader and start getting that experience, that would be more of a non-conventional piece. But the everything else before that, the whole development to management consulting to program project management, that was probably more conventional in nature. But the way I've defined these, conventional versus non-conventional journeys is really, you start off, as a coder or a, PMO analyst or a business analyst, and then you get into the project and project management, program management areas, and then you ultimately say, all right, what, I've got enough, I feel confident about my project management experience, and I think that I've seen PMOs around long enough, and I think I might be able to go ahead and, uh, help someone set that up. So that's one way to go about that. And again, this is just one broad take of it. There are so many roles that I haven't included in here, like architects, software, system analysts, software engineers, etc. You can go ahead and have different permutations, combinations here. But this one, the non-conventional one, is even more interesting because there are like a lot of different possibilities here. And I've seen people who have gone in straight from operations directly becoming PMO leaders. And that's not a bad thing at all. Because if you are, especially for the company that you've been in long enough, you already know the relationship, you already have the relationships, you know how things work, you know what needs to get done, you know how to get done. And that is essentially what you really need out of a PMO leader. But there are instances, if you see the orange box at the bottom left, there are folks who I've met who have said, all right, this is enough. I'm sick of the way project management is happening here. There's no consistency. There's no predictability. I've not been mandated to do anything, but you know what? I'm just going to take care of it on my own. And I'm just going to go ahead and start slowly getting the leadership warmed up to it and go about setting up a PMO. And some of the folks that I've worked with have done that and have grown from being a business analyst to setting up a PMO to becoming the VP of customer affairs. So interestingly, the as you go about setting up this role and taking more responsibility and ownership, that reaps rewards in different ways as well. So those are two different aspects, I believe, of sort of getting to the PMO leadership role. And now we're going to go about looking at you and learning about where you are, what you want to do, where you want to go, and how we're going to get there. So I've got a bit of a poll here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and launch it up. And if you guys can answer these three questions, actually there are 4 questions. So there are 3 questions which are for everyone. What's your own project management experience? What size of company do you work for? Why are you interested in PMOs? And then the last one is, if you were already a PMO leader, if you're not aspiring to be one, but rather already one, which of the 2 journeys would you think it took you to become a PMO leader? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and launch this poll, and it should be coming on your screen right now. If you guys aren't able to see it or can't vote, let me know. Because I see that people are still not voting. Can you guys see it? Okay, perfect. I see that some people are starting now. Okay, great. We got around 26% of people who have voted so far. Okay, great. So the numbers taken up. We've got around 50 people, 55% of the people who are attending doing this so far. Okay. Almost there, 70. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Let's keep on going. Okay, we've got around 70% of the people who have voted. Just want to encourage the rest of the 30% if they want to vote, now's the chance. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and stop the polling in a few seconds. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now. And I want to share the results with all of you guys. So can everybody see these results? I just want to make sure you guys can see this on the screen. If you guys can quickly just type it in the chat or raise your hand. If you guys can see the results on the screen. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Great, we've got a few folks who's raised their hands. So interestingly, this is a very good mix as I would have expected. You know, we've got 42% people who are new to project management. You know, we've got a few people who are dabbling in, and then we've got a few people who are experts. You know, 36%. So it's a pretty good mix between all three. You know, the company size is very skewed. We've got a lot of folks here who are either in the small range or the large range, and very few in the mid-size range. So that's interesting to see. And then why are people interested in becoming, in PMO? So, you know, we've got a few sponsors. People have given mandates to get PMO set up, and they're interested in what the team should work on. Some people are either about to start or are already in the middle of setting up the PMO for the first time. And then we've got one person who is seasoned here, seasoned in setting up PMO, and would love to get on the perspective. Would love to hear from them. And we've got a few aspiring PMO leaders who are really interested in seeing how they can get to that top role for the PMO. And then we've got one person who is in the other category. And then this is extremely interesting, guys. For the people who have, who are already PMO leaders, we've got a split, an exact 50% split here for a conventional and a non-conventional way. And I think this just shows, and for everyone who's gotten there from the non-conventional perspective, just want to let you know that, this is a testament. This demonstrates that non-conventional ways are very possible, and you're not alone to get to that place where you're there. And then I also want to encourage aspiring PMO leaders that, no matter where you are, you can get to where you want to be, and chart out your journey as you desire it to be. So that's fantastic stuff, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and move on with our presentation. Thank you for answering those polls. I think that gave us a good idea of who we have on the webinar today. And so let's talk a bit about what does it take to become a PMO leader, right? And some folks, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot about this during our Q&A, but folks who are already in that journey can allude to that or can relate to it once we get into it. But the way I think about it, I look at the attributes of a PMO leader, right? And the journeys can be different, but ultimately, you have to focus on what really builds you and makes you a marketable, confident, methodical prospect for the role, right? And I call that framework the O framework. And it's really a ring. On one side, in the middle of the ring, you've got the skill set attributes. On the left side, you've got the mindset attributes, and that's, circumferenced, surrounded by your experience, right? So it's your experience that you have, it binds you, it strengthens you. It's okay if you don't have any experience in the past for setting up a PMO. There's always a first time. As a, we have 4 people on the webinar here. We've all gone through it, or and then for the aspiring people, the aspiring PMO leaders, it's totally fine. But it's how then you go about setting up, figuring out to position yourself to become knowledgeable and demonstrate your experience that is very relatable and that you feel confident that you're up for the role. So that's what I want to focus on, right? So what I want to do is I want to slice and dice each piece and talk a bit about it. So let's focus on the skill set first, right? The skill set attributes. So I typically break the skill sets for a PMO leader into 4 different categories. There's the project management category, there's the organizational category, the functional, and the people. So the project management category is really, all elements, all disciplines within project management, schedule management, financial management, reporting management, etc. When I talk about organizational elements, I talk about the strategy or the tactics of the business planning, etc., around the actual company. And this also could be the institutional knowledge within the company, how the company works, what the company's culture is all about, what's acceptable, what's not, etc. From a functional perspective, now this is only helpful when your PMO is more departmental in nature. So maybe it's you're setting up PMO for the HR department or the marketing department or the procurement department or the digital web department. And in those situations, it becomes very helpful if you have the functional knowledge how that department actually works, or how the function that it specializes in, how what that is all about. So if if you know a lot about marketing and if you're setting up the marketing PMO, that's a massive bonus point. If you already know a lot about procurement and you're setting up PM for the procurement department, that's a huge plus point. And then finally, but I would probably make this the most important one, is the people aspects, the people skills for it, right? The relationship building, the negotiating, stakeholder management, consulting, collaboration, all of this really falls under the people skill bucket. And to me, if I look at all of these 4 categories, to me, the project management knowledge and having the people skills is an absolute mandatory piece for becoming a PMO leader. The organizational skills and is a nice to have, and from a functional perspective, it only depends on if you're working on a PMO that is focused on just a department. So that is the right hand side of the O, the skill set. Right now, let's get into the left hand side, which is the mindset attributes, and I've really broken this into 2 broad categories: leadership and attitude. Right, and you see a bunch of things that have skills, a bunch of mindsets that I've included within each. Right, so being visionary as a leader, having growth and demonstrating ownership, being accountable and trustworthy, and being able to trust others as well. Having integrity, and that's something in today's day and age is massive, right? I don't think you'll ever see a job description that says I need someone who has integrity. You will have some job description that says you're honest, which is almost the same thing, but this is an unset expectation. And then having the right temperament. You're there as a facilitator in general. You're there as a neutral standpoint, and you having that temperament is key. And then obviously being able to prioritize things accordingly. And then from an attitude perspective, right? The first one I put in is just believer in PMOs. You've got to make sure that you are sold on why a PMO is specifically needed, what it should do, how it should go about it. And that should be guided based on what you're hearing, what you're seeing on the ground. We'll get a bit into that. But just the fact that you ultimately, as a leader, become a believer in the vision and the notion of the PMO. That's key. If you're not sold, you can't influence or convert someone else into a believer either. Just being aware and methodical of different things and being assertive and decisive. I'm not going to go through the entire list. It's out there, but essentially we're talking about you being able to have the right attitude. A lot of people talk about the right attitude. I wanted to sort of take a stab and talk a bit about what that means from the concept of a PMO leader and how you can apply it, right? So this is what the mindset element of the attributes of a PMO leader are. And then finally, the experience, right? So I love this quote from Rita Mae Brown. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, right? So there are tons of quotes on experience out there. Experience is the best teacher, etc., etc. But really, having prior PMO experience obviously is going to be a massive benefit. That's going to teach you a few things, just about the way the game is played for setting up a PMO. It's going to go ahead and teach you a bit about either teach you new skills or maybe polish a new mindset or maybe strengthen what you already have from a skill mindset perspective. And I think that becomes very, very important. Again, if it's not there, no problem, but having that is obviously a big plus. But one thing that I wanted to call out is having portfolio or program or project manager experience is not equivalent to a PMO leader experience, right? Having the PM, program, portfolio, project manager experience will help you with the skills here for project management. And yes, it will also develop some skills that you have around people management aspects of it and some leadership and attitude aspects. But the actual experience of setting up a PMO is rather different and more consultative in nature, and there's going to be more elements of negotiation and facilitation, communication, etc. involved. So I just want to make sure that people are clear on that as well. So we've talked about quite a bit of things. I want to take a step back and look at the overall framework. Right, so if you take a look at this, this is all we spoke about. And this can be pretty overwhelming, right? What do you guys think? Like, I just want to go ahead and pause and see if you guys, what are your thoughts? Do you think that this is overwhelming? Is this, more structured? Like, what are everyone's thoughts around this? Like, what do you guys think about this framework so far? If you guys can write a bit in the chat. All right, Terry's saying it makes sense to Terry. Dan likes it. Looks reasonable as a top-end profile. Damien says that. Agree with your assessment of the skills needed to successfully set up a PMO. That's what Deborah is indicating. All right. Mix of both is what Larry is suggesting. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. All right. So what I wanted to go ahead and do next really was, understand and talk a bit about why these attributes, right? And where do they come at play? Yes, okay, sure, we've gotten, we want to talk about these attributes. They're here for a reason. You'll see a lot of them in job descriptions. You'll see a lot of these as expectations. You'll see a lot of these being demonstrated, but how and when, right? So what I want to do is maybe take a look at that framework, our O framework, take a look at the skills that the attributes that we talk about, and sort of map them into the steps that are needed to set up and evolve a PMO. And I think that may make it more of a aha for all of us. It may be there, you may already be aware of it, but if it's put in that way, it may seem more apparent, and it may make more sense for us. So that's what I thought that may be helpful. So what I'm going to do is, take a look at each phase and go through the key attributes that are necessary for each phase of the PMO setup and evolution to be successful. So, I mean, just in general, phase one is assessing the maturity, understanding the current state. Phase two is talking about, understanding the future state and defining the roadmap. Phase three is all about implementing the PMO, and phase four is your continuous improvement and optimization, right? So when we get into the maturity assessment, the understanding of the current state of the PMO, the first thing we want to do is really talk about the why. Why is the PMO needed? We need to understand who the stakeholders are. We need to understand what questions to ask them. We need to use that time to not only understand what they think the current state is from a project management perspective, but also from an organizational perspective. What do they think the pain points are? What do they think the future state should look like? Why do they think the PMO can help them, right? And these are some of the questions that can help understand what you really need to do to put in place. Essentially, the basics, the foundations of the actual business case for the PMO starts from here, right? And that is an opportunity for you to not only get valuable information from the people who've done this, or so who are there, who are feeling the pain points, but also establish a strong relationship with them, establishing trust with them, and that helps you in the future phases of the PMO setup. So, just right at the top of the head, right? If you're wearing your PM project management hat, from a skill set perspective, you obviously want to have a schedule where you're defining how much time you're going to spend in the assessment of the maturity phase, the future state phase, the other two phases, and then setting up interviews, communicating with them, understanding what the scope of the PMO should be. That is important. And then understanding what the organization is facing, what are the strategies and tactics that it's adhering to, where are the gaps, that is important. And then the relationship building, the management of the stakeholders, and then really consulting with them, right? You're asking them for advice, you're asking them for feedback. That's key, right? And then mindset from a leadership perspective, I feel that this is the time when you can share your vision as well with the stakeholders and understand their vision from them as well. So, again, you are coming in as someone who will help get this thing done, but has some sort of a sense of what needs to happen here as well. And then you are also showing your ownership that this is your baby. You want to make sure that you are, going to give it the best shot at this and make sure that this is done right the first time. And that's where the whole believing in yourself and the PMO will become very apparent here. And I want to talk about a bit of the sense of urgency as an attitude, is because this is a time when you want to go about quickly to see how where some of the pain points are. If you're showing traction early enough, people will automatically start giving you the credibility that you want. And then the experience element, if you've set up a PMO before, it becomes very easy the second time or third time or fourth time around to really get into the nitty-gritty of the current state and even identify where there are gaps that can be small wins, and start working on the small wins to further strengthen your credibility and earn the trust of the folks, the stakeholders in the company. So, from an assessment maturity perspective, from phase one perspective, I believe these are the attributes that a PMO leader should have and demonstrate. Getting into phase two is, establishing the target state, the future state. So you already talked about what the future state should be. You've asked for people from the stakeholders, their opinions within phase one. Now, phase two is about taking all that information, analyzing it, and putting that on paper as a roadmap, right? So reporting management becomes a key aspect of it, and analyzing and planning from a business perspective becomes key. Uh, Now, once you have that in place, you want to go ahead and share that with all the stakeholders, and really get a sense of, okay, guys, you know what, you said this, and this is what I'm hearing from everyone else. What do you think? Right? So people will start going about providing their feedback and thoughts on, okay, so this is the overall, synthesis of what everybody is saying, and you're talking about, influencing some stakeholders. You're talking about negotiating with some stakeholders, and there's a lot of collaboration, facilitation involved as well, to sort of really get to the final roadmap of what the PMO should be, and that includes, what the scope of the PMO should be, what the roles and responsibilities of the PMO should be, what is the level of influence that it should be, what is the structure that it should have, what are different functional touch points it should focus on, who should be part of the PMO, who shouldn't. So those are the key aspects there. And then from a mindset perspective, right, you want to hold yourself accountable, but make sure you're keeping everyone else accountable as well. You may have people changing their minds, which is okay, but you just want to make sure that you are uh, calling people out when you need to, in a very friendly and professional manner, so that you are able to put a stick in the sand for what the roadmap should be in a very effective and decisive way, right? And that's where having a strong temperament is helpful, and this is all part of your change management piece. Making sure people are aware, making sure they have the knowledge, and then finally talking about what the decisions should be. Now, having past experience in setting up a PMO, right? One thing that is helpful here, if they've set up a couple of, once or twice before, is besides looking at what the stakeholders want, what they think they need, um, you know, you can very quickly bring in the industry experience of what's happening within the industry for PMOs, and also your own sense of what the PMO should be based on what you've heard so far, based on what your analysis of the organization is, based on the change it can accept, not the change that it needs, but the change that it can accept at this point. Because if you bring in change that is more than what it can accept or less than what it can accept, that can become dangerous for the PMO's existence. So it has to be exactly at the level that that is required uh, uh, for the company or the organization to accept the change. So that is talking about phase 2. Moving into phase 3, right? So this is implementing. So here, based on the roadmap, you've figured out what all the elements of the PMO should be. You've understood what the pilot should be. And then once the pilot is done, you want to roll it out to the rest of the organization, depending on the scope of the PMO. So, really all PM skills here, treating the implementation as an actual project is key here. And doing this, from a tactical perspective, because the strategy was identified in the first 2 phases. Now we just want to go ahead and deliver and execute. So we've got to be hands-on and tactical, and there's going to be a lot of communication, presentation involvement as well. And then one element in terms of the mindset that I want to call out here is being methodical, right? Having that plan in place is key. But as they say, plans are worthless, but planning is everything, because plans change. So, having the bit of flexibility to sort of allow that as well is key here. And then if you've already had a PMO experience before, then where that helps here is that as you start setting up the PMO, you will have folks who are going to be, yes, this is great, we love this is amazing, thank you so much. Or we might have people who are not really happy with the change because of various reasons. It could be because they're not feeling recognized, because they may feel some political issues coming in. They may feel that it's not the right vision for the company in a genuine way. They might feel that it's too structured, or they might have perception that it's slowing things down. But irrespectively of what that is, you'll have to understand what the naysayers are, where the naysayers are really coming from, and try to nip them in the butt. The idea is to do that in a professional way, and also leveraging your champions, so not just you sharing that message, but getting your champions to help share that message across the firm as well. So that is the key for the prioritization aspects of it. I think I saw someone send a little bit of a message. Just want to take a quick look. Right, exactly, Srinivas. So it looks like setting up a PMO is itself a project. Yes, it is. Exactly. And then the last element of it is, continuous improvement, phase 4, optimization of the PMO. Here again, you're going sort of in a bit of a circle. You started off, and now you've gone to a point where, what you've gone out to do, you've accomplished that. It's time to go ahead and grow it again, according to the needs of the organization. So we are back to scoping, scheduling, reporting, and business planning. And there's again, the growth element of this is there, but you also want to make sure that you're decisive based on what you're hearing and what it can accept, because now you actually gone through cycle once. You know what the PMO, what changes the organization can accept, and based on that you can get a good sense of when and how much is ready for phase 2, right? And having the past experience here can really help in this space in a way that you can go about just be placing in an advisory role of, what, this is what I've seen, guys, and this is what I've seen in the past, and I think that this should be phase 2 for the PMO. So those are the attributes of the PMO leader in action from the actual phase by phase perspective, right? So we talked a bit about the what, right? We talked a bit about we talked about what are the attributes of a PMO leader. We talked about where and how they are demonstrated and used and exercised. And the key question then is, how do you acquire these attributes? Do you just really want to go about, selling in the way and you'll eventually get it? Do you really want that to be your strategy? Well, I think we're all here because we want to take control in our own hands, right? And so, interestingly, you don't necessarily need to have all those attributes, or not having to perfect all those attributes. Obviously, that could be the target that you want to reach eventually, but there are short and near-term goals that you want to focus on, and also depending on the nature of the company that you want to shoot for, there might be some attributes that might be more valuable versus others, right? So if you were to take control in your own hands, you really want to do a bit of a current state, future state on yourself, a bit of a self-analysis, a bit of introspection in terms of where you are and where you want to be. And that's valuable, not only just for aspiring PMO leaders, but also for PMO leaders who are setting the PM for the first time, PMO leaders who've done it multiple times, and they have different career aspirations as they go along in this journey. They want to shoot for the next level, and so to get to the next level, they just need to determine what they want to do. So understanding, based on your previous experiences, what attributes you've got so far, how would you measure them, right? And then ideating where you want to be, and depending on the gap, right, between the current and the future. I've shown a few screenshots here. I've just sort of mapped this out very quickly. You've got the attributes, you've got the subcategories, and then you've got the category, whether it's a skill set or a mindset of experience, and that can, you can go ahead and do a self-evaluation, understand what the gaps are between your aspirations and your current state. And once you've determined the gaps, you could say, all right, sure, these are the gaps, I recognize it, but I want to focus on, these attributes first, and then you can focus on prioritization and sort them out by prioritization and determine where you want to put your efforts on first. And then once you've gotten that, once you've come to this place where you've got a good score, you understand where your gaps are, what your priorities are, there are a few ways you can cover these gaps, right? The first one is something that will really force you to it, is finding roles that facilitate on-the-job learning, right? So you may want to say, all right, I want to go become a PMO leader. I think that I need to start working within the PMO, PM, within a PMO in the sense that, either as a project manager or a PMO analyst, which is reporting directly to the PMO leader. So that's an opportunity for you to learn on the job in terms of how the PMO operates. You can find mentors who can guide you along the way, who can hold you accountable to these goals that you set for yourself, or a coach who can challenge you and develop you. So, let's say, for example, you want to find a coach on report management, or if you want to find a coach on strategy, or if you want to find a coach on improved temperament, they can focus on, all right, this is what you want to do, this is what these are the attribute, this attribute is something that you want to work on. They'll tell you, okay, let's get deeper into that, understand what you need to do, and how you can get there. There are classes there as well, depending on the attributes that you're focusing on. So obviously there's a lot of stuff out there on project management. There's a lot of stuff out there on public speaking. There are a few classes out there on change management as well, that you can consider. And then there are books and blogs and other publications that you can learn yourself. And then obviously with attributes, you've got to practice them. So as you get to them, you have to consciously make an effort to sort of work on it, practice them. Even if it's at home or in your current role, even if if you can see that you're lacking in it, in some attribute, and you want to go for it, you can see if there's an opportunity to exercise that specifically within your current role and work on that yourself. So that's a bit about taking control in your own hands. And I've put in some suggestions in terms of just books, and these are mostly focusing on project management and PMO, and obviously there's tons out there in terms of public speaking. Toastmasters there, but there's a ton out there on leadership, and then there's tons out there in personal development from an attitude perspective. But my question to you is this: would you want a comprehensive way that will fast track this for you? And now this is something that I want to ask you guys in the chat. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are here. You guys can go ahead and just write it up in chat. Would you want a comprehensive way that will fast track this for you? Okay, I've heard Larry he's saying fast track would be great. Deborah saying absolutely. Fall is saying yes, it would be very helpful. Terry is saying sure. So yeah, and Rachel is saying yes, please. And the reason why I'm saying this is because as I'm seeing through my own experiences, as I have I'm working with different PMO leaders. I'm talking to different people. I'm noticing that excuse me, a lot of people are trying to go to many different places to get what they want to be, and it can become very challenging. So having something that's in place, a one-stop shop, if you will, and that can help you facilitate where you want to be. I think that's something that could be very valuable as well to both PMO leaders who are setting it up for the first time, and for aspiring PMOs. So with that in mind, what I want to introduce you to is a new program that I'm coming up with. It's called the Accelerated PMO, which is your simulated coaching class. And this is for first-time PMO leaders and sponsors. So it's also for sponsors, but folks ideally who are setting up the PMO for the first time, or they're setting it up right now, and even aspiring PMO leaders and sponsors. This is ideal for them, who are committed to learn, share, grow with this experience, and then willing to invest the effort, focus, and time, right? Because that is key. If you've set up multiple PMOs before, you may find this valuable, but it may not be as much valuable as it might be for first-time PMO leaders and aspiring PMO leaders. So just wanted to put that out there. And then we absolutely do not want know-it-alls and those people who are not really invested in developing themselves as successful PMO leaders, right? So the idea again here is to focus on the development of you to become successful PMO leaders. And what I want to cover in this is really this, what you see on the screen. We want to talk about what the overview of the PMO is. We talk about the functional, disciplinary, and structural aspects of it. We talked a bit about the skills and mindset. So what we did, what I just talked about taking control in our own hands. We want to go ahead and take that and apply it to all of you and people who are participating in the program, encouraging them to see where the gaps are, what they want to prioritize, and then develop SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, results-oriented, timely goals that you will be working on through the course, right? We will want to talk about the 4 phases of the setup. So we talked about the 4 phases of this setup there, but we want to go into the deep elements of it. How do you go about actually identifying the right questions to ask? Who should the stakeholders be? How do you identify the stakeholders when you're coming out with the interviews? How do you determine what the current state should be? How do you map the future state? And then what are the change management aspects associated with this? All of that within the current state, and then looking at it from a future state perspective, which are the metrics that you should be focusing on? How do you make sure that the business case for your and the roadmap for your PMO is strong? How does what you heard from all the people or the stakeholders relate to the business case, and how do you go about setting up that roadmap accordingly? And again, the change management elements over here as well. And then finally, when you're coming down to the execution, how do you identify the right team? Talking about some of the processes that you're going to be building. How do you define the right tool for the PMO? And then rolling out the pilot, doing the road shows, etc. And then finally, the continuous improvement is how do you take a look at the PMO to keep it relevant and fresh? And then finally, we close it out based on what we learned, doing a quick assessment on how all of us did based on our SMART goals, and then close out the session. So that's what we are going to be covering in the Accelerated PMO course, right? And why you should do this, why should you even consider this, is because this is going to be in a group setting, and it's going to have hands-on simulated play. So we are going to go ahead and cap this the group to 10 people, and we will have 2 different teams or more, and each team will be given a certain situation where they need to go about setting up a PMO from scratch. And so, besides having our class sessions, there will be outside class collaborations that I would expect all the participants to do, because there will be assignments to be given, and there will be some classes in which we'll just be reviewing the assignments and I'll be providing my feedback. So with that, you actually get the hands-on experience of setting up a PMO, and you get to learn a lot from the experiences from everyone within the group. There's a ton of collaboration, ton of learning from there. I'm accessible, so through our Facebook group, through email, you can access me, ask questions, and then obviously I'll be teaching the classes myself. And then that way, with all of these things in place, if you're shooting for the role of the PMO, how do you position yourself based on the simulation that you did? What are the learnings that you have? How, if you're shooting for a job, then you're not going to say, oh, by the way, I don't have any experience. You will mention that this is what you did. Additionally, if you are interviewing with someone for a PMO role, you can tell them, you can show them what you will actually do for them, which will speak volumes to your candidacy. And then finally, and in my mind, the most important thing is you yourself will feel confident that, you know what, you've been there, you've done that, you see what it feels like from a PMO leader's perspective, and you'll feel the confidence to do this methodically. And remember, if this is in a group setting, there'll be multiple groups, there'll be multiple scenarios, so you will be able to get a first-hand look at what each scenario looks like. So that's the idea. And all the things that we talked about, roles, mentors, coaching, classes, books and blogs, and the effort, everything is combined really in this course. So, when we go about, focusing on the curriculum, you'll be also setting SMART goals, and then myself and your teammates will be holding you accountable to making sure that you're meeting your SMART goals as well, right? So this is going to start in January, and we will have 12 one-hour group classes, which will be spread across 3 to 4 months. And like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a maximum of 10 people or so. And, the classes will be, the way we are talking right now, but that will be more in a cross-collaboration way. This is just me speaking to all of you guys. In there, you'll have a general meeting with multiple people in there, and we'll be collaborating accordingly. And then additionally, what I wanted to go about mentioning that is, besides all of that, all of what we spoke about, I don't want you guys to be in a position where there are a lot of things you want to start from scratch on. So there are a lot of elements, such as the self-analysis, introspection guide that I shared with you earlier, that are going to be very key in helping you getting a good start in your PMO setup, not just for the course, but you can take that, and practice it at work when you get the opportunity. Those templates are going to be available, as an added bonus to this course as well. And the value of all of those in, combined is over 3,500 just by themselves, right? So that includes, what are the PMO setup activities? So actual list of 57 activities by roles and responsibilities. How do you understand what the questions for the stakeholders are? What are the relevant PMO metrics that are typically involved in PMOs, and how you should figure out what's good for you? Some examples of process flows, so on and so forth. So all of these templates will be, a part of the course. You'll be provided with them. You'll be expected to use them in the course, and then you can use them as needed in the real world out there as well. So with all of that, the investment that you will make in yourself to become a successful PMO leader, is the effort, time, focus, commitment, and attitude. And then there's obviously a monetary investment as well. This course investment is a $1,479 US dollars, but you have two options here. You can either get a 10% discount and just pay $1,331 if you want to go ahead and make the payment in full, or you're more than welcome to pay the entire $1,479, but put a $500 down payment today, or when you decide to, and then you want to go ahead and then make the equal payments of $326 and then last payment of $327 in months 1, 2, and 3. So that is what we've got today. To do that, all you need to do is go to this website, http www.parvazcc.com/the accelerated sign up. Now here, there's a form right there at the bottom, and all you have to do is complete the form, which is literally just this. And once you fill the form, I will be notified and I will connect with you, either on Skype, WhatsApp, or Google Hangouts, just provide information for one or all of them. And I have to connect with you to get your credit card information. Unfortunately, I'm not set up on accepting credit cards on the websites right now, but this is the way to do it in a safe way. And I'll go ahead and make sure that when I call you, I just put that directly in our payment gateway so that, I'm not writing it anywhere else. I'm not saving it anywhere else. And that's why I don't want you to I want to make sure you don't also include any credit card information in this, just your contact information. And that's about it. Again, guys, this is only for we want to make sure that the group has 10 spots. We want to cover that. So if you're interested, please go ahead and send me your information, and we can go from there. With that, I know we covered a lot, and I just want to go ahead and take a step back, see if you guys have any questions. If you have any questions, just go ahead and start putting it in the chat, and we will go from there. Do you have scheduled time for classes? What day, what time? Deborah, that's a good question. I do not have a scheduled time right now. The reason for that is that we have a lot of participants who are from across the globe. So depending on which people participate, I will make sure that we will come up with a schedule that is suitable for most people. There might not be ideal ones, but it'll be. I'll try to make sure that those times are in such a way that they are acceptable for everyone, and then we can have if you have even preferred times, we can talk about that for sure. In terms of day, ideally I would consider a weeknight Eastern time, or even a Saturday morning. But again, like I said, it all depends on which people join in, and which time zones they're in. Thank you for that, Deborah. Hope that answers your question. Sunil, any certifications for PMO? I'm not sure I follow. Can you maybe elaborate on that? Larry, are you asking where one can access this webinar in terms of the recording? Is that what your question is? And then I have, okay, yes. I can go ahead and I will go ahead and send you the link, Larry, since you've shown interest. I will go ahead and send you the link for the webinar. Yes, Sunil, that's for short-term PMO certifications. There are certain organizations that offer some PMO certifications. There is, believe Americo Pinto's PMO value ring certification. And I think there is Alexo, which is another organization that offers a P3O certification, which is sort of similar to PMOs. So these are the certifications that I'm aware of. Sunil, I don't know if they're globally accepted or not. I don't think there are any certifications out there for PMOs that are, let's say, as globally accepted as PMI, or sorry, as PMP. So I think that is a bit of a gap in the industry right now. I have been asked if I can share this presentation after the deck after. Sure, I can. If I will go ahead and send this out to all the attendees, as well as send the link to the webinar. Any other thoughts or questions, about what we spoke about the attributes, about the course itself? Any thoughts from anyone? Any questions? So sorry, Larry is asking, how about turning this endeavor into a certification? I'm more than happy to provide you a certificate, but in the sense that and you can definitely present it to employers or prospective employers as someone who's participated in this course. Absolutely. And also making it continued education acceptable with help to what does that mean, Larry? Not sure if I follow that question. So am I right? Yes. So that's a great point as well. And I think both Larry, yourself, and Deborah, you guys are asking the same question, that am I a registered education provider with the PMI? I am not right now, but that is something that as a goal, as a smart goal for myself, that is something that I want to do. This is all based on my experiences, my conversations with everyone, my observations on what the gaps are, and I think that having this presented to PMI uh, uh, events is something that I've been working on, and I've been doing that. But to actually, deliver this as a uh, uh, registered education provider, that's something that I have to do. And so that, I want to make sure that PMI then recognizes what you do. In addition to that, you guys can get some PDUs as well. I have seen Jaren, thank you so much. I will make sure that I accept your LinkedIn request. Rick is saying, Rick is interested. Thank you so much, Rick. Yeah, I think that makes sense. You may want to go ahead and it's definitely investment, but you may want to go about figure this out. And if you want to talk offline about facilitating how you can get the buy-in from the management earlier, happy to do that too. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email and we can arrange for an offline conversation, Rick. Great questions. Fantastic. How helpful was this to everyone? Just sort of presenting the skills, the attributes in the way that they were, and the way they were laid out against the different phases. Was that helpful to everyone? Is there any feedback or thoughts on how it could be done in another way where it's meaningful? Terry appreciated that. Thank you, Terry. Fantastic, Larry. Thank you so much. Good to have you here, Larry. Excellent, guys. So if you don't have any more questions, it's 9:04. We're 4 minutes over. So I definitely appreciate all of you guys being here. Just sure, Rick. I don't know what you mean by that. But again, if you're connecting with me offline, I would love to get your thoughts, and we can definitely add more things to make it more meaningful and powerful. Thanks, Shadrach. Thanks for having me here. Good night to you. And just for everyone, references, we have the link right here for people who are interested in signing up. And for some reason, and I'll be going ahead and sharing the deck as well as the webinar link for everyone's reference as well. So with that, thanks everyone. Have a good one. Good night to where you are. Good evening. Good morning to wherever you are. I know on the Australian coast, etc. There's morning there. I really appreciate all of you guys making it out here, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care. Good luck. God bless.